It only took one bad pit stop and one overtime finish to change the entire complexion of this race. We're here at Darlington Raceway, and let's talk about it. Hey everyone, welcome to Above the Yellow Line from the track. My name's Taylor Kitchen, and on this show we talk all about NASCAR on the channel that does the Motorsports Media your way. And you guys know Dom Joseph. It's been a bit since we've done an at-track video together. It's been like, what, 2022?
This might be, yeah, I think 2022 was the last time, right after the Coke 600. So yeah, it's good to be back. Yeah, and this was a great race, so love to talk about it.
I know the consensus online by those who viewed it at home were saying this was kind of a snooze fest of a race, wasn't a lot to do. I mean, most of it kind of comes down to what the viewers see on the broadcast. But from our perspective at the track, there were plenty of battles in the mid-pack, and though the story of the day was Byron dominated this race, over 243 laps led, unfortunately did not come home with the win, and it came down to a bad pit stop and then, of course, that overtime finish.
Yeah, honestly, as the NASCAR Cup haulers are departing right now, making sure we all know about it, yeah, you know, Byron had arguably the best car of the day, but that could also be because he had the clean air, and that really seemed to be the say-all be-all of this race. And I know we all want to see a battle for the lead. We want to see the leaders go at it. That's where the entertainment is, but there were great battles in the mid-pack in the top 10. So it was a good race, but I can also understand the argument that we could have done a lot better. But I still think, man, if you're Byron, that's got to be upsetting because they dominated this race. But that is the perks of having clean air. They talk about it all the time. This is exactly why.
Exactly, and clean air is so key at a track like this. And after the race, the media got a chance to ask Chris Gale, Denny Hamlin's new crew chief, and Denny Hamlin, you know, why is it that this track, this intermediate track, acts so differently than the others? What is it? And basically the answer from Chris Gale is that this track has less groups. There's less places to kind of move around. And from Denny Hamlin is that everyone's running so close. Everyone's falling off at the same time, so you're not going to get that much variance in performance, which I think is pretty interesting. But I think Chris Gale has a good point. There's not as many grooves at Darlington.
There really is only two, and obviously the number one is being right up against the wall. So if you can take control of that line, you have a really good shot of winning this race or just keeping your position. But we saw some guys like Ryan Blaney who were bottom feeders who could run way down below the line or the lowest groove, if you will. So he made it work. That's how we got the lead off of Tyler Reddick. So there were some that were able to make it work, but Darlington, it's so narrow in those corners. It's very deceiving. You think there's a lot of real estate there, but because of how the banking works here, not a lot of real estate for passing. But again, there were some that could make the bottom work.
And like you said, Ryan Blaney got the lead from Tyler Reddick close to the end of the race. And then unfortunately, we had that late race caution between Bubba Wallace and Kyle Larson. Looks like Kyle Larson just put on the brakes a little bit. What did you see that happens?
Yeah, based on what I saw, you know, when Blaney made the pass on Reddick for the race lead, Reddick, obviously he's doing everything he can to hold the spot, got into the wall. Larson sees the car in front of him, putting everything into it to get the lead back, go into the wall. He's expecting that 45 to get launched off the back of the wall and maybe spin out. So he checks up for that. Bubba is still pushing hard. He couldn't react in time. That's what I saw personally.
That's exactly what I saw too. And after the race, I think the funny quote of the day from Denny Hamlin was, "There's two people I really love right now, my pit crew and Kyle Larson." Obviously, unfortunately, Larson was the one that spun and ultimately kind of pulled out that caution there. But let's talk about the pit crew of the number 11 coming in clutch consistently. And we've seen new techniques that have been on social media for this 11 crew, kind of the behind the back maneuver with that, with the part of the pit stop. And it's been incredible to see that team really perform well and grow. I think we were talking about last year how, you know, Joe Gibbs Racing as a whole just kind of missed the mark. And a lot of it sometimes came down to pit stops. A lot of it was what could have been. Some of it was luck. But this pit crew has really exceeded our expectations early in the season. It's been incredible.
Yeah, you look at last year, just looking at Denny's wins, I think about Richmond where it was that late race restart. Yeah, they had a good stop there, were able to get the win. But you look at Dover, that was a long run, and that was just on outright pace. They were able to get that win. But when it came down to the money stop, that was their big hindrance. That's something we've seen with 2311 as well. But my goodness, money stop. When you put it all down, chips are on the table, and you need that stop. He gained so many positions on pit road, and it won him the race. And I'm glad that he straight up came out and said, my pit crew won me this race today, because my goodness, what a stop it was. And, you know, they're far enough down pit road that they can be a little competitive, but you've got to get 4 tires on quicker than the other guys. You know, the 24 team was stout. The other guys that were competing, the 12 looked good. 45 looked good. I know the 12 had a bad stop late, but regardless, that 11 team, money's on the table. They went and got it.
So that's back-to-back wins for Denny Hamlin. Of course, Denny finishing in that first position. Second place, William Byron. Third, Christopher Bell. Fourth, Tyler Reddick. Fifth, Ryan Blaney. Sixth, Chris Buescher. Let's talk about RFK Racing for a second here. Brad, unfortunately, did not have a great day, but overall, a good day for the 60 and that 17 car. Obviously, Buescher getting the better half of that.
Yeah, for sure. Priest had a really good start to this race. He started on the outside front row, but he maintained that and would not let Byron get away for a good period of the long run early. Obviously, that 24 was just stout and clean air and could just drive away, but Priest maintained his position. And then there was a period of time, not sure if it was stage 1 or 2, obviously before Brad had his moment, where they were 4th, 5th, and 6th, and Brad was catching both of them, because obviously Buescher had a good day all throughout, same with Priest, but Keselowski managed to get back up there with them and show, I've got pace too. It's all across the board here at RFK. So again, heartbreaking for Brad Keselowski. I know they're just really struggling right now. They're the defending winners of this race, and not at all how they wanted it to go today. But solid day for the 17, and that's just more positives for Ryan Priest, who's had a tough go in the NASCAR Cup Series as of late. Went over to Stewart-Haas Racing from JTG and had a little bit of a resurgence, but things kind of tapered off. But this has been a dream start of 2025 for Ryan Priest, and it's paid off for RFK too for getting the 3rd charter.
Yeah, it's been awesome to see Ryan Priest do what he does, obviously breaking that top 10 streak this weekend. Nevertheless, an awesome performance from that 60 car. Rounding out the rest of your top 10, though, we have Ross Chastain in 7th. Typically a better track for him. Struggled kind of at the beginning, kind of fell at the wrong end of some caution calls when it came to his pit strategy, but ultimately got that back for a top 10 finish. We have Chase Elliott in 8th and 9th. I know a lot of you guys don't like Ty Gibbs. I know. I understand this. But this is a big deal. First top 10, and I think what I calculated, 13 races. If we go back to last season, he needed this.
Desperately needed this, for Joe Gibbs Racing to have the 11 and the 20 be as good as they are and the 19 as consistent as they are. And, it's the owner's grandson. There's a lot of pressure on that 54 team to make that car fast. And the caution fell their way. We're able to take advantage. They get a top 10 out of this race. They were competitive too. They were up there. The Monster Energy Camry was good. Obviously nowhere near the 20, the 19, and the 11. But, it takes time. And this is a work in progress for that team, and they will take this top 10 all day long.
And I do think that was momentum built from last week's performance at Martinsville. Obviously, he had a great performance, but unfortunately his Toyota teammate took him out of a top 10. So I would consider this redemption for that team for sure. Ultimately solid. And then 10th, Kyle Busch. So I know he had some to prove last year, kind of coming in second, I believe, at Darlington to Chase Briscoe in that exciting and thrilling fall race, but a top 10 for him nonetheless. Not that bad. RCR, honestly, going to Xfinity for just a second, because I wanted to point this out, struggled, especially Austin Hill. I was shocked. He didn't start off the race well in Xfinity at all. He had to start at the back of the pack, and he couldn't figure out the balance. And I was like, is that going to continue today for RCR? And still kind of lost. I feel like they're a little lost.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is just goes to show how hard Darlington is.
Yeah.
You can be as good a driver as Austin Hill and Jesse Love, two super talented drivers. But there's a reason why only the best win here. And you look at Denny Hamlin, this is his 5th win at Darlington Raceway. So, once you master this place, it continues to reward you. But for guys like Austin Hill and Jesse Love in the Xfinity Series, you've got a really good team in RCR, always a championship contender in Xfinity. But, this place only rewards the worthy, the ones that have mastered racing on all different types of circuits. So it just goes to show the aura of Darlington Raceway, if you will. People are either terrified of this place or they love this place.
See, this is why I want this to continue to be the last race before the playoffs, but it's just one girl's opinion. I don't know. It's fine. There is one driver I really want to highlight after his performance earlier in the race, and that's Ty Dillon. I think we've seen him racing more and more inside the top 10 this season, and he's been more of a talking point. I talked to him before the race this weekend, and he said a lot of that's due to his mindset. He's kind of changed how he looks at the race, less results-based and more just, am I doing better? Am I excelling as a driver? And he said at 30 years old, he feels like he's the best driver he's ever been in his career. And ultimately that comes with time. But I do think what a lot of drivers took into the season is a mindset change. Bubba Wallace, for instance, changed his mindset. You're seeing him lay down fantastic results. Obviously today with that late race caution, didn't have the result that he deserved ultimately. But it's another thing of the mentality behind the wheel. And I think Ty Dillon ultimately changed his mindset. and is performing better. But even too, just good to see that Colleague equipment doing something worthy this season.
Yeah, definitely. Ty Dillon had a really good card this weekend, for Colleague standards, of course. And it's a work in progress for that team. They're still building their way up. I just feel like once we switch to the next gen car, they've just been behind the 8 ball. And I feel like that's been for a lot of these teams. Obviously, it's made the competition very equal, but there's still a lot of teams that are doing a lot of growth and development on this race car, and Colleague, unfortunately, was one of those teams where they just can't get the balance right. But really cool to see Ty have a good run, have decent runs throughout. I think about Phoenix immediately, man. If they had that extra set of reds, they were going to win that race, and that's just incredible. But really cool to see him have a good run, especially in the paint scheme that he had, throwing back to Patty Moyes, and to see how excited she was about the car. Just so cool. And then even cool to see Seabest, the sponsor, go back to the Beaver Street Fisheries sponsorship. That was really cool, to be as iconic and as perfect as possible to the original. So a lot of positives to take away from that team.
And by the way, in case you want to see our rankings for all the throwback paint schemes, we did that on the ATYL live show just a few days ago when this is going to come out, so make sure to go watch that. And something, I guess, to add to that too, something I was very keen on this weekend was the discourse around the throwback paint schemes. I know this is an old topic, I get it, fine. But something to be said from the perspective of the alumni drivers in NASCAR. They had a whole alumni event this weekend, and how they said the throwback schemes made them feel closer to the sport, closer to their families. And I think that's something that's forgotten as well. So I love Throwback Weekend. I know, I believe you do too. And just seeing all the fans in their throwback gear, Brad Keselowski even said, it took me to go to the fan zone and go to the merch haulers to see how special this is to everybody. So I think the effort's definitely worth it, but it was overall a fun throwback weekend. That said, let's go to our race rating above or below the yellow line presented by Happy Hour Racing. We talked a lot about how, kind of hard to pass for the lead. A lot of it was clean air driven, but there were a lot of good battles in the mid-pack. How would you rate this race and why?
Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say 7 out of 10. Above the yellow line. Yeah, I thought it was a really good race, and I can understand everyone at home just saying, my goodness, that was a snooze fest, because one guy led 243 of 293?
Yeah.
That's just disgusting. So we've seen guys dominate like that before, and people just call it a snooze fest, whatever it may be, but it's Throwback Weekend. And you made a good point just talking about just the whole behind the scenes of it. And I had a moment on pit road where obviously the 24 was out front leading, and it was on a restart where it got away by maybe a second, so you could hear the 24 by itself before the field would catch up. And just seeing that iconic Jeff Gordon paint scheme, the sound of that car, that Hendrick engine, you get chills, because you're convinced Jeff Gordon's in that race car, and it all comes back to you, why you love the sport, what got you into it. So for Throwback Weekend, for a crazy finish, what we did not at all see coming, I was convinced it was a Byron runaway, but that's why you have to run all 293. Give me 7 out of 10 above the yellow line.
So also as a heads up, when we were in the car on the way to the race with Toby Christie of TobyChristie.com and Racing America, I called my shot. I said, you know what? It feels like a Byron weekend. It's going to be a Byron weekend. He led the most laps in this race, dominated, and ultimately, unfortunately, lasted. But I was close. I think I jinxed him, so apologies on that to you, Byron fans. But yeah, I will say a 70 or a 7 out of 10 seems pretty on par for me. Yes, it was kind of a giveaway with Byron in the lead. I understand that, but being here at the track, and there's actually kind of like a stand that they have where some of the MRN crew kind of stand on towards the end of turn 1 or by the entrance of turn 1. You get to see so much of the track and around, and some of those battles that you didn't get to see on TV. And I think for me, being able to be up there and have that perspective allowed me to say that this was a 70%, quite honestly. And that's also just the power of being at the racetrack. I know it's tough to travel to these tracks. It takes money, it takes time, you got to get time off. And we're lucky to do what we do. And hopefully being able to be here and stand up either in the stands or in that kind of stand by turn 1 helped you guys gain perspective on the race weekend too. But I guess across the board, 70% above the yellow line, of course, presented by Happy Hour Racing, that race rating. But everyone, this has been Throwback Weekend. really fun, really exciting stuff. And of course, more exciting content coming from us here at Above the Yellow Line and ATYL Media. Make sure to check us out at AboveTheYellowLine.com and follow us on all social media platforms. Dom, where can people find you on social media?
At DomJoseph22, very easy to find. So got some pretty simple stuff there. I like to post a lot of fun facts on threads about NASCAR, so you can check me out there.
Yeah, definitely good stats to find on threads. I retweet them, or I guess repost them, rethread them. I don't even know. Every week. So definitely make sure to follow him there. And of course, like I said, follow us on social media at ATYL Media, at Above the Yellow Line, or for me, at _TaylorKitchen_. But everyone, thank you all so much for tuning in to this episode of Above the Yellow Line from the track. We're getting some wind in here. My name is Taylor Kitchen, and this is Dom Joseph. And until next time, we'll see ya. Bye.